Hello, everybody. Welcome to this fun, amazing conversation with my friend Steve, who's a healer, a spiritual teacher, and a ninja. We'll talk about more about that. And he's a really cool guy. We know each other for quite a while. I think he actually
Mhm.
brought Theta healing to Slovenia in a way, in some manner, shape, or form, or at least one of the first people here, because he taught my teacher or something. But apart from that, he's done so many amazing stuff, and I really feel like in these days when there's madness and drama and stuff, it's really good to just have nice conversation with friends and see where that goes. So, welcome, Steve.
Well, thank you, sir. My pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me. I'm really pleased and honored.
So, Steve, like, tell us a little bit about yourself. I did a little mini introduction, but tell us your story, like from dog walker to ninja, space ninja, or whatever you want to call that.
Sure. I'm Canadian originally, dual citizen. Sorry, I have to fix something here. Dual citizen of U.S. and Canada, although I grew up in Canada. And the kind of spiritual aspect of my journey started years ago, a long time ago. When I used to live in Los Angeles, I had a dog walking business with my ex-wife, and at that point started, for different personal reasons, getting into different forms of kind of self-help and spirituality and stuff. And actually starting with the 12-step programs.
Mhm.
Um, my first kind of introduction to doing any real work, real kind of deeper inner work, was through um, Overeaters Anonymous and Al-Anon. And of course, as many of you know,
Mhm.
Al-Anon is for the people that keep on attracting alcoholics and drug addicts and whatever
Mhm.
into your life, and you get yourself all verknuckled and lose your center and lose your serenity because of the behavior of other people outside of you. And I kind of started with that. It was really an important part of my journey. And then at a certain point, I kind of learned about the theta healing and had an experience which made me go, oh my God, I need to learn how to do this. This is just crazy good. And
Mhm.
at that point, some 20 some years ago, over 20 years ago, I started taking the theta classes and using that practice and kind of using that as the primary technique of kind of going into myself and finding out, why am I actually creating all this crap that is so bloody uncomfortable and painful and frustrating and stuff. And over time, used that technique to clean myself up a little bit by bit over time. And yeah, and then eventually made my way to the Balkans, first Croatia, and then expanding out to different parts of the Balkans. I spend time now in Croatia, Slovenia. I have that flat in Slovenia that I get to see through you. Actually, I got that through you, basically. And I have a center now in Zagreb where I'm primarily working out of, and I help people with that, with theta classes, with other processes that have come to me. And
Mhm.
that's kind of the short Reader's Digest condensed
Yeah.
version without too
So
many
I know
details.
this is a hard question, but what's like the main focus of your work? What areas or things that are like most focused on? Do you do everything? But like, what's the thing that you're really like passionate about?
For this kind of work where I'm, excuse me, well, there's kind of there's a kind of a separation between
Mhm.
um, what I'm passionate about and how I do that, like the tools I
Mhm.
use.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking about that actually the other day, and as I was making some kind of a description of something for someone, I forget who, kind of what came out of my mouth or what came out of my little fingertips as I was typing away was, I I seem to like to help people make their lives easier, which is kind of the first level of
Hmm.
what makes me happiest through helping them kind of clean away the things in their various levels of consciousness so that a deeper, more authentic version of themselves that's more aligned with who they really are can kind of interact with the world and maintain their center, maintain their serenity more and more easily, not overnight, but over time. And there's various tools I use. And for the moment, my favorite fundamental tool is a process called the magnetic heart activations, which kind of came to me intuitively.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So please go on. That's going to be the next question. So
Yes, the next question is, ooh, I'm psychic. Ooh. Oh my God.
Be careful. He's reading all of your minds now.
Yeah. Oh God, no. Um, yeah. So I'd been doing the theta healing for about 9 years at that point. And I was spending most of my time at that point in Croatia, actually, in Zagreb. And one day I was sitting in the Garden Mall. I like to kind of make a joke. I should never tell people that I got this intuitive information on this amazing process while I'm in the Garden Mall. It's just not sexy story, I should say.
Yeah, it should be an ancient cave in Tibet.
Ancient cave in Tibet, next to the yogi that's been in meditation for 37 years, and the animals coming and bowing to me and all this shit. So no, I was in the mall having coffee. So waiting for my friends to finish Christmas shopping. And my feeling is that I'd done enough work, at least to that point, where I had started to kind of trust the weird voice in the head that comes and begin to tell a little bit the difference between when my imagination is making some crap up and there is actually kind of some of this, and the imagination is being used as the mechanism to allow ideas to come that I would never have thought of, that have nothing to do with my current life or my ways of thinking or anything. And long story short, I got shown a way intuitively to ask for something in the heart to be shifted, a magnetic field in the heart to be shifted that lets us be less of a victim of the world. Where, like most people, and sometimes I fall into this from time to time as well, like,
For me, never. I never do. I'm never a victim ever.
Yeah. Oh God, tell me about it.
Go ahead. I'm
I
joking.
know this. Some of this spiritual stuff can be so seductive and can make some of us, I mean, myself included, think, "Oh my God, I'm so special. Oh yeah, baby, yeah, come on." So, we have this experience most of the time of the world is happening to us, and we have no influence. And even if we intellectually know we do have influence, it's this deeper aspect kind of short circuits the reality of that. And long story short, I was shown how to ask for one of the magnetic fields of the heart to be adjusted slightly so we become less of a victim and we get to have more choice over how we react to the world. And therefore, as we react to differently, then, and we have different feeling, the ability to have different feelings about what's going on in the world, those feelings kind of give instructions to the universe to change for us so that we can, again, progressively have better and better experiences and less trauma and, creating less and less crap, basically.
That's amazing. Funny because I was just listening to this guy lecture channeling guy, and the other was like radical imagination. So what you're describing sounds like radical imagination. It's not mental imagination, like I'm imagining to be a tree, but it's like imagining something beyond what our mind thinks is possible. And that's how we know it's probably accurate. And it's so weird. You're going, no way, I'm probably making this up. It's like that's when unless you're on drugs or stuff, that's when you're probably hitting something. So it's funny because what you're describing actually now has the term. So like you got this process by trusting this thing, which was like seriously. So that's so amazing to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why. It's like my superpower isn't so much that I'm smarter than anybody else or more spiritual or more anything. My superpower seems to be I've learned to kind of a little bit tell the difference between my own imagination trying to trick me and like I said before, the imagination being used as a mechanism for me
Mm,
to receive something outside of myself that I wouldn't have thought of.
mm,
And me go, you want me to do what? Oh, okay. And being stupid enough to go ahead and try this weird idea that's coming to my head, or being kind of, less concerned about looking like too much of an idiot and still
mm.
saying the stuff that some other part of me thinks, you dumbass, don't say that. They'll think you're crazy, run away. And yeah, it comes down to that, a lot of it.
Mm. It's funny because I tried this like, magnetic activation. It's fucking amazing. It's like so many levels. I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. So like, just tell us a little bit what this is. You have to experience, of course, and you will be able to. But like, what is it? It sounds too good to be true. Like, oh, that's just gonna happen. I should meditate for like 40 years and do penance and
Yeah.
then travel around. And you can't just open your heart. You crazy? Like the old scriptures say. I'm making a joke, but like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
amazing because it actually works, and I've experienced it. But tell people who haven't, like, what is it, or like just a little bit about it, because I think it's valuable for people to hear. This is not marketing, but do it anyway.
Yeah. 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 Sure. Sure. I mean, it doesn't hurt if somebody hears it and likes it and wants to
Yeah.
try it. So what's wrong with that? Especially if it helps people. Um, um, what's the question? Sorry.
So, yeah, what is it? How does it like? How does it work? This magnetic activation? Just a little bit about the process itself, or just a tiny bit, because people like who never heard about it, like, what do you mean? Like going to my heart, like
Right. 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 Um, it's an energetic process that I I sort of do for people. And in a way, I kind of don't do it for people. I just kind of have learned or been suggested intuitively of how I can ask for something in a particular way for the universe to do for people. So
Mm.
again, I'm not the big super powerful guru from the Altanian galaxy or whatever. I'm just this guy that says, "You want me to do what? Okay." And basically, it's like it's a long-term process over several months where I I get somebody to come, or somebody decides they want to come and try this weird thing out that the weird Canadians talking about. And I ask, the mechanism is I ask for, we'll call the first part or the first level that we call, as you remember, of this magnetic heart activation. And so this process happens for people. I'm part of my job is to ask for it and be the proxy witness of the process for people, so they don't have to worry if they're doing anything right or wrong, like they're not, breaking any stupid rules or something. And I watch the creative energy of the universe, whatever you want to call it. You want to call it the great I am. I like that. That's a good word. Not so much emotional baggage around the great I am as there
Mm.
is around the word God or the creator or
Mm.
whatever. But I ask for this creative energy to do this process where this magnetic field that causes us to have this experience of the world be adjusted. And I literally just energetically witness it for people. That's my biggest job. Um, and they get to have this done to them. And then over the course of a minimum of 1 month, they allow this adjustment, this apparently small adjustment, to kind of change how they consciously and more often unconsciously interact with their reality,
Mm.
how they have to experience their relationships, how they have to experience their relationship with money, how they, um, I don't know, pretty much anything in their life.
Mm.
And and it's always different for everybody. Everybody has their own stuff that has to be adjusted in their own way. So yeah, so I kind of start with that.
Mm.
That's what's called, that what I call the first level, which I kind of described briefly a moment ago. That was the piece that I got, 14, 15 years ago when I was in the
Mm.
mall.
Mm.
And I started doing it for people.
Mm.
And and people started going, oh, this is helping me. Oh my God.
Mm.
And shit. 1 second, I'm sorry.
No
Hold on.
problem.
Somebody knocked.
So yeah, we're talking about the magnetic card activation and how you got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I just started doing it for people and things started changing. Like people started releasing old resentments to relatives, or they stopped being triggered by certain people. Where there was this one funny story. This lady, she comes and she talked about there's 9 parts to this process that you do
Yeah.
gradually over a minimum, over 9 months, because I make people wait at least a month in
Yeah,
between so
yeah.
they can have the full deeper kind of adjustment.
Mm.
Anyways, so she comes to get the second part and she says, hey Steve, can I tell you why I'm actually coming here the second time for the second part? Sure, fine, yeah. Before this activation, the first part, my daughter drove me crazy. She knew, she's a teenager. She knew what to say. She knew how to say it. She knew the tone of voice to say it. She knew the perfect timing to say whatever she was saying to piss me off,
Mm.
to make me angry, to make me upset. It worked every time, and I hated it. And she loved it. And she knew exactly what she was doing. It was like a sport for her.
Mm.
After the activation last time, took about a week. After the activation, it stopped working. I don't know why. I didn't do anything. I didn't try to stop being triggered. It just stopped bothering me, which drives her crazy now, which makes me very happy.
Mm.
So it's like this process, even now, it continues to astonish me how deep this work is. And so each part has I think I may be going in too many different
That's
directions.
okay. It's cool.
Each part has its own kind of intention and um, um, well, it does. It has its own intention and its own kind of purpose. And over time, it gradually kind of refines your consciousness. I like that expression,
Mm.
refining your consciousness. I like it a little better than raising your consciousness. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it feels like to me. It's more like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. So, anyways, this process kind of evolved over time. And, 10 months after I got the first part, the second part kind of revealed itself to me. Something new happened when I was doing it for a large group. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what is this? God, creator, what is this thing that happened? This never happened before. Oh, Stevie boy, that's the second part of the activations. What do you mean, the second part of the activations? Oh, you didn't think there was just one? Yeah. You never told me there was going to be more. Well, you didn't ask, did you, buddy? Oh, yeah, you're right. I never did ask if there was more to this. Oh, shoot. Okay. So the next part revealed itself. And then over time, over the years, literally
Mm.
over years, more pieces of this larger puzzle just kind of presented themselves to me when most of the time when I wasn't expecting it. Because I
Mm.
didn't ask
Yeah, yeah.
for stuff. I just said, whatever you want to do, fine. Just make it fun so I don't get bored.
Yeah, this is interesting. This idea of like listening to creator God I am and acting, that sounds crazy in our modern, technical, rational world. But like,
Mhm.
years, thousands of years ago, that's how our ancestors lived, like Native Americans, native traditions. I think you also study a little bit of that stuff, like so it's the flute playing and the stuff. So it's kind of like tell us a little bit about that, like actually living, listening to life, God, creator, and how the ancients did and how we don't do it, kind of explore this kind of, it's a big question, I know, but I think it's an
No,
interesting
yeah,
thing
it's
to
a good
start with.
question. It's a good question. This may be me just avoiding the question, but I won't. I'll actually answer.
No,
It's
go
kind of
ahead.
like I don't know. I don't know how it works. It's just lucky enough that for whatever reason, my nature is one where I just kind of go with the flow. In my life, that certainly caused problems.
Mm.
Some of the time, technically, if you look at things objectively from the outside, I shouldn't have done this. It was absolutely stupid. stupid,
Mm.
stupid, stupid for me to have done this, or decided to get into a relationship with that person, even though there was 17 red flags.
Yeah, I've
Or
never done that either. Like never. I've never.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure no one that's listening has ever, made any kind of errors in their
So we're
relationship.
all perfect here.
Yeah, oh God, yes, yes. Yes, we just
Sorry,
worship
go ahead.
ourselves. Thank you, thank you. Oh, I love him. I'm so wonderful. Um, um, and so for me, it's been a double-edged sword, at least from the outside, and from a logical, objective point of view. There's a lot of stupid shit I did,
Mm.
and at the same time, for whatever reason, each of these stupid things helped me to gain wisdom, which just which isn't about being smart or anything. It's more about like, okay, what is this really about?
Mm.
How many times do I need to experience this particular thing for me to actually get it?
Mm.
How many times do I need to? How many levels of this lesson do I need to
Mm.
learn? Like I know in my case, and you're probably very similar. In my case, there's a particular kind of lesson that I thought I've learned, and then next week or 2 years later, something happens and it's the same lesson.
Mm.
And at first, I'm thinking, well, crap, how stupid am I? I should have. I had this last
Mm.
time. Why didn't I figure it out? Well, I figured it out up to the point where I was capable of figuring it out.
Mm.
And then I needed more time to have different experiences so I could look back and appreciate it from a new direction. So this time, when I made the same mistake with some slight changes in the circumstances, I could have a deepening of the lesson that I wasn't
Mm.
ready for yet. So I think that me and a lot of people kind of really make it difficult on ourselves more than we need to. Like we judge
Mm.
ourselves about how we should have learned everything by now. Oh my God,
Yeah.
and it's just,
How could I do this
I,
again? But I'm spiritual and blah blah blah, and I'm such a
oh
bad
yeah,
bad
yeah, yeah,
person. A
yeah, yeah,
guilt Christian kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I don't know. We all have our own path. We all have our own lessons to learn. Um, you know, it's just the way it is, and that's okay. Survive, move on, take what you're capable of taking, and be open to new ways of perceiving what happened.
One thing I really like about this is just my own observation, but nowadays we kind of focus, we want to be like successful, this idea of success, and like enlightenment into another project. I'm going to get enlightened or I'm going to be spiritual, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if we make it into an
Yeah,
idea, it's unreachable, like kind of self-sabotaging. Like in the ancient days, I'm idealizing, of course, it's more about gaining wisdom. There was no one great goal, like I'm going to get there and then be something. It was just like living life and, oh, I've gained some wisdom here, I've gained some wisdom here. So that's a really different way of looking because you can't lose. If you're aiming to gain wisdom, you can't fail or lose. You're just like, oh, I'm gaining wisdom. If you're looking to get a certain outcome, then you will always lose because you'll never be happy. Your mind will never be happy. It's kind of interesting way to
sure.
look at it.
Yes. And even having a desire to gain wisdom can also be a double-edged
Mm.
sword.
Yeah, totally.
Like if you're like, okay, what do we need to learn is one thing. Oh, I'm going to gain more wisdom now, then I'll be better, is more of an ego thing,
Yeah.
like I do that. I catch myself doing that
Mm.
sometimes as well, like everybody else. So I think that I don't know,
Mm.
really, pretty much the answer to any question you're going to ask me is I'm not sure.
It's
Like
a good answer.
the less I realize I know, the smarter I seem to get.
Mm.
The less I think I know, then I I have less outcome. Sorry, wrong word. Less expectations for the results of my actions, and I have less disappointment. But for
Mm.
me, just my kind of matrix of whatever I am, the more I'm able to kind of mix letting go of expectations, but cleaning myself enough so I can take spontaneous, more natural, spontaneous action instead of sitting there with my thumb up my nose, waiting for the world to fix me. Then, as I kind of get variations of that balance, then the world more and more gradually over time kind of unfolds for me. The less I try and make it unfold in a particular way, but still take action based on
Mm.
how I would feel in the moment.
Mm.
That sounds complicated.
No, it's not actually pretty simple. It's cool. So the second thing, like, not that we're marketing stuff, but this amazing thing called the ancestor healing stuff. Let's talk about why this is important. Because some people go, "Oh, I'm creator. I don't need to heal anything. I'm perfect." And other people go like, "I don't want to deal with that. It's too heavy." So like, in your ways,
Mhm.
kind of getting through this, and it actually works. So how do you approach like healing ancestral stuff, and what does it mean, or like why is it important? Because people are like, "Why should I bother with this? It's too heavy," or like, "I don't need it. I'm perfect. I'm enlightened. Why would I meet a perfect being need to be doing this?" These are kind of two
Right,
extremes, which are interesting.
right.
So, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, well, first thing is when I start thinking, well, I'm enlightened, I'm perfect, that's a big sign that I'm totally going backwards, and I'm not. Um, that yeah, there's this class that kind of came a few years ago. It was so interesting. I was in Russia, northeast Russia, in an area called Yakutsk,
Um,
and my friend who was organizing stuff and asked me to come and do some stuff. We were going to do a bunch of theta healing classes, which I'm a teacher of, and for lots of different reasons, no one's fault. Very, very, very few people were coming to the classes, and like, okay, I need to be able to get a ticket to go home at some point.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can stay for a while in Russia, but yeah. And this, and we were talking, and what can we do that people will really like? And in that part of the world, there's a really strong conscious as well as unconscious connection that people have to their ancestors. And this need, both consciously and unconsciously, to respect and honor the ancestors, which in some ways is really beautiful and wonderful, because thank God for our ancestors. We're the fact that we're here and we've survived through how many generations and how much horrible history, and just mathematical the mathematical uh, unlikelihood of us actually surviving. I mean, in a way, we're kind of the cream of the crop. We're the ones that survived, and we get the best of our ancestors. But it's a double-edged sword again. We also get some of the stuff and inherit some of the patterns of behavior, some of the belief systems, some of the genetic kind of tendencies with anything, genetic tendencies of brilliance, of genetic tendencies of sickness, genetic tendencies of prejudice, or ways of seeing the world, um, because of history and everything else. So sometimes with our ancestors, even though they're amazing, and thank you for my ancestors, some of their stuff wasn't healthy.
Mm.
And it's not their fault. And I mean, think about this 50 years ago, even just 50 years ago, the tools that they didn't have that we have is
Mm.
shocking, the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So they are amazing what they've done, but we inherited some of their unhelpful tendencies as well. And if
Mm.
we and there's I'm sure you've heard the expression, we're the ones that our ancestors have been waiting for.
Yes, yes,
I think
yes.
that's correct,
Yeah, me too,
because
totally.
we have tools and abilities to implement. We have things like bloody Zoom
Yeah.
and the internet and
Like this would be magic. What do you mean? It's like,
this magic box that the world's knowledge is stored in, and I can go in and
yeah.
find out anything. We have access to stuff they didn't have. So we get to be the ones that have newest ability or opportunity to break the chain of dysfunction. And so, anyways, long story short, so I'm in Yakutsk. So what should we do? These people have this beautiful, complicated, wonderful, difficult relationship with their ancestors, and that this ancestral stuff governs them often, like it does everybody, in ways that are profound, like everybody. So, let's do a quick healing for their ancestors. Let's bring them all together and and let's get them to say the things that they happened to their ancestors and the belief systems and attitudes that their ancestors have communicated that they don't agree with, but they get stuck in. And we listed them all down, and it was like, holy shit, this stuff that they're saying is profound, man. And then what we did was, okay, now we spent a couple hours literally writing pages and pages of this crap. Let's connect with source, God, the creator, the all that is, whatever you want to call it. And let's invite the ancestors spiritually to come and join us and ask for a huge, massive release of as much of this stuff as we can allow. Mm. And it was, I had 2/3 of, like, there was like 60 people that showed up. Yeah, I couldn't get three people to a theta class that time, that trip. But the reason for that was so that this ancestor stuff could be born, this particular form of doing some deep ancestral genetic healing. 2/3 of the people were crying at the end, in a good way, not, good tears, not bad tears. As we asked Source to kind of cleanse the genetic lines and release everybody from being obligated to repeat the stuff that didn't help anymore. And that's kind of where that came from.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that also kind of took on its that class, like the magnetic heart activations, took on its own life. And now there's like 7 versions of the class, and we're having huge groups come to the center in Zagreb, and sometimes online as well. So yeah, I don't know, that's cool.
That's amazing, because it's like, what's needed, what's required, not what I want. Like, I want to do this, but like, it's like, no, this is what's needed. It's a really different approach when you ask like, what's needed, not what can I do? I'm gonna make a career. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
When you ask what's really needed, then it's a whole different magical things can show up we couldn't even think of before.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. We have these
Cool.
boxes. We have these boxes of how things have to be that have restricted us on multiple levels. And something about this time in history is the walls that are making the box are becoming less and less consistent and less certain. That's a better word. Okay. And so stuff like this other stuff starts emerging, and now is starting to be able to emerge, whether it's, my stuff or, the different technologies coming through and whatever.
Cool. So like the second box or thing, I was joking you're a ninja, but you this martial arts kung tao is still a thing. And people go, what do you mean? Aren't you spiritual and should be peaceful and just really nice and friendly? And we don't really need that stuff. We should just kind of send enough love and everyone's gonna be fine. I'm joking, but like, how does martial arts come in? Like, I train also a little bit, tiny bit, but like, and for me it's like normal, but many people like don't understand how that fits together. How does it fit together for you, and why it is important for men, women too, but men especially, to kind of, maybe if they choose, train a little bit of that, or just for yourself, how do you see that?
I do it not for any particular philosophical reason. I do it because it's fun.
That's a good answer.
I do it because I like it. I've got a particular kind of pair of teachers right now, and I've played with martial arts ever since I was a kid. I took a little bit of judo. I didn't get very far, but I trained a little bit mostly when I was living in Toronto. So how old was I? I was like between 10 and 14 or
Mm.
7.
Funny, I did it
Could have
too
been
at that
10.
time, and then I dropped out. So interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I dropped out at the time, but it was fun enough.
Mm.
And apparently I picked up more than I realized, because when I was in college, so when I was a kid, did judo for a while. I was still a white belt. I didn't get any
Mm.
promotions or anything, but it was fun. And then I didn't do any real martial arts again until my late 20s, I think, middle late 20s. But in college, um, I was living in the dorms, or in Canada we call them the residences, the student
Mm.
residences. And I was on the 6th floor of Henday Building, and we were joking around with my friends. And one day, and this one guy who was bigger and stronger than me kind of was joking around and attacking me, not horribly, but just for fun. And out of nowhere, I don't know how this happened. I can't say, oh, I'm going to do this flip on this guy now. I just out of nowhere, my body just went and took him and shifted exactly the right way and did the flip, and he was on the ground going, what the hell just happened?
Mm.
Oh my God. So I didn't do it to be a tough guy. I did it because it was fun. And you can, and I still do it because it's fun. Like,
Mm.
like, maybe the way to think about it isn't so much for some people that, for whatever reason, think it's bad. Personally, maybe one way to think about it is if if it's something that you have fun, you enjoy doing, then your actions and intentions are about creating joy within yourself,
Mm.
being more kind of emotionally centered and less affected by the outer world,
Mm.
where the outer world has less opportunity in some ways to disrupt your own kind of inner serenity. And
Mm.
it can become one tool kind of by mistake for creating peace, because you get to be peaceful under more difficult, extreme circumstances.
Mm.
Um, the guys that I've known, I mean, you've seen some of the pictures on my Facebook.
Mm. Yeah.
Pendegar, Steve Garton, and I'm with him. And one of the guys that I'm training with now is one of his students, but has lots of other background. There's a guy named Joe Judd. One of my teachers in Los Angeles, Mr. G, James Gavsey, he's a 5th degree black belt in
Mm.
jujitsu and this other kind of mixed martial arts stuff.
Amazing.
These guys that are that good, I mean, world class, are the nicest guys in the world.
Mm.
They're the ones that are trying to help the world. They're the ones that bring peace out of this deeper internal strength
Mm.
that's living in them, partly because of their training in these martial arts. They give them this confidence, isn't exactly the right word, but this ability to be restrained.
Mm.
Um, there's a there's an expression the meek shall inherit the earth.
Mm.
And most of the interpretations from the mass population believe that means the people that are kind and small and don't do anything, and they're the ones that inherit the earth. And when you track the deeper interpretation of the original languages that came from, the word meek does not mean um, small and
Mm.
and not hurting anybody and just being small and that's it. The word meek means people that know how to use a sword really well, but
Mm.
keep it sheathed,
Mm.
keep it in the sheath
Mm.
99.99% of the time, but have
Mm.
the ability to protect and stuff when and if you ever need it, which God forbid you need it. But if you do, you
Mm.
have it. It's like the ones that can be violent, but choose not to be violent,
Mm.
that have their egos kind of in check and have this deep love
Mm.
of people as their primary motivator, as I
Mm.
could say in Star Trek, the prime directive,
Mm.
you
Wow,
know.
that's profound.
So what do I do it because I can be tough? No, I'm not tough. If I get into a fight, and if somebody's really trained, I'm still going to get crushed because I'm just having fun. But who knows? It doesn't, I don't care so much if I can win a fight. I like the martial arts and I like this particular guys that I'm training with who are just amazing and beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, we'll put some links with all that stuff below in the chat. But the interesting thing is, like, when I'm listening to that's been my experience. I've just kind of played around for fun too. But like my trainers and friends, they're the kindest, most loving, gentle guys, and they're lethal. Like, but they never
Yeah.
got into fights because I don't need to. And like, I've never gotten into a fight for the last 15 years. Before I was constantly, and now, like, since I started training, I've never gotten into a fight, and I never want to. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
bragging, but I didn't need to. And before I was so afraid, people just hurt me. Like people would come and hit me for no reason because I was so full of fear and anger. And once I work through
Mm-hmm.
it, it just doesn't happen because I don't have it in me. So that's quite
Well,
amazing.
yeah, that's exactly right. And like, there's a study that I remember from somewhere, probably when I was studying with Mr. G in Los Angeles and in the jujitsu and the mixed martial arts stuff. Um, he's a lot about bullies and training to protect yourself from bullies. And there's a study that I think the FBI did. I'm not sure if that's
Mm.
exactly the source, so don't quote me on that. But if a person has taken one or two individual martial arts classes, it changes something in them on a deep subconscious level where they change the way they walk through the world
Mm.
just minutely, where um, the message they're sending out causes people that are predators to be less likely to choose them as a victim.
Mm.
Taking two martial arts classes most of the time will give you next to no practical skills.
Mm.
It's fun and maybe you'll learn to punch, but in a real fight, who knows? It's unlikely, highly unlikely after two, but it doesn't
Mm. Yeah.
matter. What it does is it changes you inside where you have this feeling of yourself, mostly unconscious, that you go from walking like this to walking like this. And these
Mm.
predators are masters at human psychology. And when you're
Mm.
walking through the world, even with a slight change, you're like 80% less likely to be the victim of a violent crime on the street.
Yeah. Because the big weak
80%.
people or scared people, like
They
they cannot
they
scan
they
for scared people. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so it makes perfect sense your experience. Like, you didn't take more, you took more than one or two
Yeah, a little
classes. I
bit
realized you
more, a
had,
few more, yeah.
yeah, a few more years, yeah, and it's wonderful.
But like even
So
now, like after X amount of years, not much. I don't really fight that well. I couldn't train. I couldn't like, but it's the way I stand and feel. It's totally different. So like, I didn't train to ever fight. I don't even want to. But like, I knew if I needed to, I could. Like in an extreme
yeah,
cases, and that gives you a confidence. Actually, in this case, confidence is a good word. That's
I
quite
agree.
amazing.
I
And the second
agree.
thing is like, this is just like in martial arts, it's hard to bullshit. You go on the mat, you do it or you don't. If you try to bullshit, it just doesn't work. In so
Yeah.
many cases, we can bullshit ourselves. But in martial arts, you can't unless you're doing it wrong. But there's no way to bullshit.
Yes.
You can or can't. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. If you're in a school or with a teacher or in a style that's really effective and you you meet yourself on the mat. The way you deal with life is the way you deal with a grappling session in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for
Mm.
example. And who you are shows up.
Mm.
And so I mean, once again, the top guys, they'll occasionally tell a fun story about how they
Mm.
dealt with this person or that person. yeah, that's okay. But
Mm.
the real value stories come when they say, man, I thought I was good until I met this guy. And I realized I'm one of my teachers who had studied, and he was a national Shuai Jiao champion in the US. Shuai Jiao was a kind of a standing wrestling style,
Mm.
a little bit of the roots in the Mongolian kind of wrestling matches and other stuff, but Chinese fundamentally. But he was good. And then he met this guy, and they were just going to play. And he met this guy connected to Indonesian Silat and Kuntao Silat, which is
Mm.
a mixture of the Indonesian arts and the Chinese internal arts and stuff and Shaolin stuff all kind of mashed together in a brilliant way. And he he said, we started sparring, and I ended up jumping up on boxes to get away from this guy. This national champion was like putty in this other guy's hands.
Mm.
And so these stories of humility, of you got to get this experience of humbleness handed to you on a silver platter as one
Mm.
of the biggest gifts in your life.
Yeah.
And you're right, on the mat, in the dojo, in the sparring sessions, you meet yourself.
Yeah,
It's
and
one
probably
is
this
Go
is a
ahead,
whole
sorry.
different podcast we're gonna do, but it's kind of funny. The second thing, once you actually get punched a few times, you don't want to hurt another person. When you feel how the pain, not
Yes.
like really beat up, but like a little bit, try and goes and beats you up a little bit, like you never want to hurt another person. Only if you don't know. There was some
Mm-hmm.
research being done actually, how people who train martial arts are less violent. People think, oh, the boxers, like no. Research has shown people who train are less violent and more kind because they know how it feels. The people who fight are people who've never actually been in a fight. That's kind of interesting thing. We can expand a little bit more. That it's a interesting thing.
Yeah. I mean, like these guys, they've really become. I don't know why. I'm so fortunate that I have several friends that are top level martial artists. Everybody respects them deeply. I have one friend is this Hungarian American guy who's like literally a ninth degree black belt in Shotokan karate. I
Mm.
mean,
Wow.
holy crap, man.
Yeah.
And they are the sweetest guys. And they don't get into fights. If something happens and they're forced to defend somebody, they'll do it. And they'll be very efficient. But their psychology is such very much because of their training and what they've learned and their experiences in you know when they did get into fights in the past, as when they were going through part of the training and the ego and everything else, their wisdom and compassion is very often way beyond. Well, clearly, what am I trying to say? Yeah, well, I'm basically trying to say in different words exactly what you just said, is that the ones that have that level of appreciation because of training and because of real life experiences, they're the ones that will bend over backwards not to hurt somebody.
Mm.
But they're also the ones that will protect us when
Mm.
time comes if we need it, because not everybody in the world is nice yet.
Yeah. Cool. And we can do a whole different podcast. And we're just getting started. We're gonna slowly finish up this one because that'll go forever. But just gonna
Yeah.
say, like this was the martial, but like I'm assuming, but like if you do like the spiritual path honestly and truly, it also kind of humbles you. And it's kind of similar effect, I would say. A healing path and a
Mm-hmm.
martial arts path are very, very similar. They look very different, but they're very similar, very complementary. This it's kind of my experience in this. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think that one way or another, whatever, I think that any path can be a spiritual path. I think that every
Mhm.
path is ultimately a spiritual path.
Yes,
I
yes.
think, people that are accountants are
Mhm.
whether they realize it or not, are on a deeply spiritual path. because everything one way or another, whether it's in one lifetime or if you believe in multiple lifetimes, which how that works, who knows? You're whatever you do, spiritual, what we would call spiritual now in today's society, what we would call a martial arts path in today's society, what would we call a business path? Ultimately, you're going to be faced with yourself one way or
Mm.
another. And the places where your ego, where the unhealed aspects of your ego need to
Mm.
be seen, it'll be seen.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, and this, martial arts can be deeply spiritual.
Yeah.
Spiritual stuff can be deeply violent,
Mm.
you know,
Yes.
emotionally, metaphysically. Um, it's like helping you get either way from different perspectives. Whether some people can hear this or not, I don't know. Either way, there's like this, it gives us an opportunity to see where we think we're vulnerable and we think we need to fight against our reality, but we get humbled enough where we realize one way or another, somewhere deep inside of us is the reason why the universe is presenting us with something that creates conflict within us so we can see it, dissolve it, and participate less and less and less over time with this need to fight and to think that the answer is power over others.
Wow, that's beautiful. Like that's exactly the line for the world right now. There's so much war and stuff and chaos. So maybe this is the way to path to walk. So thank you so much. We're gonna do more of this because it's so amazing.
Oh,
It's
I'd love
just
to.
like when
Yeah.
somebody just walks in and has never done anything before. Where do they start? Like, what can you offer, or what would you, where to start? Just let me know what you're doing. This is now the 5 minute marketing. So like, what's available for people who want to start it? Who like know nothing and like, oh, whatever, my life is falling apart, or I want to do something as it usually is, or just like I'm
Yeah,
interested.
sure. Like if you like, whether it's my website and the Theta Center and my new website that's coming soon. Um, with my stuff, I would start with getting the first part of the activations.
Mm.
And part of the reason for that is that you're not having to, you get to have a deeper kind of shift without having to be too vulnerable right away. Because some people get nervous when they think about, oh, spiritual stuff, or oh, I have to look at my flaws, or yeah, not always. So I
Mm.
would go with activations first, and then get to know me and the people around me and the other people that are working with us, and see what resonates for you. And then there's lots of other kind of choices, both within my so-called system. It's not like there's a system, but
Mm.
my choices that I offer people of trying to help people.
Awesome.
What feels right? Just what feels right for you?
Great. We'll just add some links and people can check. And thank you, Steve, so much. This is so amazing. I'm gonna do more of this because it's just so
Yeah,
fun. And it's so like
and
amazing. And I would like recommend Steve. I've been working with him for like a decade, and he's really cool. And I really am grateful for his teachings and work and just being there, because he's just kind Canadian, which is kind of cool. God bless Canada
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and US and
exactly.
everybody, and no one's included. We love everybody and la la la.
Yep, yeah,
So thanks, Steve.
exactly.
Have a great time, and we'll see what else comes up, what's next, or whatever. Who
Yeah,
knows?
we'll have some more conversations. It'll be fun.
Okay. Have a lovely day, Steve. And
Ciao.
we'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks everybody.